Welcome to Cuemby Podcast. Get ready for an exciting journey as we explore the latest and greatest in innovative technologies, open source tools, and visionary insights. We'll take you on a captivating adventure as we uncover stories, discuss ideas, and connect with leaders changing the game and shaping our digital future.
All right, so we are live, and thank you for joining another episode of our podcast where we bring the people. The way that I like to see it is we bring the people that actually been there, done that, and roll those sleeves and make it happen. Those are my true heroes, and today I actually have a great, friend, someone that I do admire a lot, and I was very excited to have on the podcast because I strongly believe that he have a long journey full of a lot of experience that he's gonna share today. But something that I do admire him the most is not only for his trajectories, like his basically background is like plenty. You can pick whatever you want, and he's done it. But it's more about like his mentorship, his leadership. He's a person that really strives for impact, which we both relate to a lot. He's always tried to make impact on the community wherever he's at, and something that I do share with him is like people are sometimes teachers, people sometimes mentors, but what I like to describe him is like he's the best facilitator that I ever met. He's a person that is able to actually get someone from knowing nothing to become a software engineer, and a true software engineer, because we can have many concept about software engineer, but he actually made that happen now. And I'm glad to have it in my friendship. And we have an interesting story, which I'm gonna briefly just mention. We met at in a company that I used to work. Then he was working, and for God, whatever you want to call it, we actually had the opportunity to meet again, where I was doing a consultancy. He was basically leading the entire technology, which impressive. If I tell you all that he's done there, it's like you won't believe me. But that was very nice, because we started a friendship since then, and we've been sharing a lot of our experience, and definitely, like I said, it grew a deep admiration about you, Todd. So Todd, with that being said, thank you for coming. Would you mind please introduce yourself?
Wow, Angel, I'm humbled. Thank you so much for that very warm introduction. Definitely share a lot of the mutual admiration. You've done so much and do so much for the community. I'm Todd Albert. I am currently the VP of Application Development at Site Impact. We're an ad tech company that builds software to enable advertising agencies to help sell advertisements for their best sell and market for their clients. And I've had an interesting career getting here, as you alluded to. So I'm sure maybe we'll get into that a bit.
No, absolutely.
But thanks for having me.
No, thank you. I'm pretty excited, and when I saw the idea of today's episode, I was like, yes, we have to do it, and especially it's because we have a lot of audience, right? But we also have people that are sometimes starting their journey career on technology, but we also have people that are in that step where, what is my next phase, right? Like, what should I do next? I'm already a mid developer, a senior developer, something like that. How can I get to that stage? So what I would like to do to start is, how would you see in a brief a journey of someone in technology, let's call it technology, and then we can just dig deeper in each one and see how your life journey applies to that, and they can use it as an example.
Sure. Yeah, I'll do my best. So I actually had a friend fairly recently. This is actually just a couple of years ago. He gave a talk at a conference on like, what does it mean to be a junior, a mid-level, and a senior developer? And I went to the talk because I'm like, I already know this, but I just went because my friend was speaking, and I try and be there to support. Sorry, I missed your talk on Tuesday. As I say that, I was we had a quarterly company dinner, which is also very fun. But I was so blown away by his talk and so surprised, because what he did was he actually related the different levels. And there's a lot more, I think, than junior, mid-level, senior. I think we could break it down into like engineering level 1 through 7, but just keeping things simple: junior, mid-level, senior. He broke it down by not by skill, but by like traits that you see in them. And so very often, and this is something, when you look at engineers that are getting started, one of the traits that I see that often is a good predictor of their future success is just how passionate they are about it. A lot of people think, hey, I want to become a software engineer. They get into it, and occasionally they realize they don't like it. That happened to my wife. She decided, hey, I'm going to become a software engineer. She started on that journey. She was very good at it. She would argue that she wasn't, but her instructors would say otherwise. But she did not enjoy it. She ended up not pursuing the career. But usually juniors, they get really passionate. They're eager to learn. They're hungry, and you see this energy and this excitement in them, and they're like children. Like little kids. They want to learn everything. They want to experience. They're kind of tugging on their parents' clothes, like, mommy, daddy, explain this to me. And as a more senior engineer, you get to mentor them, and it's so much fun. It's such great energy to be around. And then you get these mid-level engineers, and this was what really cracked me up. Is he categorized mid-level engineers as they've got it all figured out. They know exactly the right way to do things, and which, you've been around long enough to know there is no right way to do things, right? There's no one right way, but that's what a mid-level engineer, they have this one right way. This is the way to do it. Leave me alone. Hoodie up, earphones on, head down like a teenager in their room playing video games. Leave me alone. I don't need your help. I'm smarter than you. And they go. And those engineers, as much as like you would kind of describe them, I kind of describe them negatively there, they're workhorses. Like, you just give them work and they get it done, and it's going to be consistent and well-written code. But they don't tend to think outside their narrow box that they've created. And at some point they pick their head up and realize, wow, wait a minute. There is more than one way to do this, and I don't know everything. And it's interesting because they kind of go from, in the beginning, like, I don't know anything, I'm a junior, to I know everything, I'm the smartest person in the room, to all of a sudden it's like they went backwards to, oh wait, I don't know everything. Or at that point you're like, now you're a senior, now you get it, right? And that's the point where, a senior who's now open-minded again, they're way better at mentoring those junior engineers. You don't necessarily want that closed-minded, leave me alone, let me do my thing the one way that it works, mentoring juniors. So, I always like to pair up juniors and seniors, and then just leave mid-levels, let them do their thing. But as you're progressing in the career, there's often kind of, greatly generalizing here, there's kind of two main trajectories you could take, right? Are you going to go into more of a management leadership kind of a role, or are you going to become like more of a principal engineer, architect type of a role, where it's really more the hard skills versus, the soft skills, those people, interpersonal skills? And I often, when I talk to engineers that are progressing in their career, I a lot of times I ask them, hey, which path do you see yourself taking? And when they don't know, I tell them, well, let's put you on a path where you can work on both of those skills, like maybe a lead engineer role where you're kind of overseeing a small team of developers, and see like, ooh, do I like that leadership? Or is it really the helping them and solving the problems that I'm enjoying? And if it's the solving the problems is more your thing, a principal engineer role, might be the, staff engineer, principal engineer might be the trajectory. Whereas if you're like, oh yeah, I really like leading people, and once in a while I get to solve a problem, but kind of building a team and growing a team and helping people become better engineers, that's more of a management trajectory. I personally, and I think a lot of us in this field, I really love both, right? So in my current role, I'm doing a lot more of that management and leadership. Um, but it's like I get plenty, so then I go home and code at home, like I'm far enough in my career where I'm like, I used to be like, no, I have to be coding every day. And I still feel that I'm like, I'm addicted to coding and solving problems. And I, unfortunately, in my role today, I don't have a lot of bandwidth to actually be in the coding. Not a lot. I do. I'm doing a lot of higher level stuff. But it's like we all have side projects. You know, Most of us, I should say, have side projects going on. So I get all the time to code I need it, at home and working on projects and stuff. So
No, and definitely, I think you had that leverage at this point in your career where like I can do both. But actually, I have two questions. But before I ask the first question, which is gonna take you a little back to the unit, because I love the reference about like looking at your professional career as your actual personal career. I'm a kid. I'm trying to learn everything. Teenager. I Any teenager knows everything. I got
and
one.
then you become an adult. Yep.
He knows everything. So
Yep. Of
I
course.
need to let them know, like, wait until you become a young adult where you figure it out. Like, I don't know anything. But is there a way? Because maybe I want to, before I come back, I want to say like long in the future, right? So if I'm a junior developer and I'm looking towards the future, I know that there's these two potential paths that you can take. You mentioned that is pretty clear. At some point, those two merge back again, or would never merge in any given point. It's kind of like a curiosity.
Yeah, I mean that's not necessarily my observation. So, I'm very fortunate that I have a few mentors in this field that are a few years, older, they're a few years further along in their career, and I look at them and I see where they are in their careers, and a lot of them have kind of gotten to this point um that they're in these high level management positions, and some of them will tell me like, oh, I haven't written code in 10 years. And I think a lot of us as software engineers, we, especially when we're younger on in our career, we hear that and we're like, oh, I don't ever want that to happen to me. But they're still getting to solve a lot of problems. Like, even in my role today, I'm engineering fixes to huge, company-wide problems that, just as an example, we had an offshore team or we have an offshore team that we work with along with our internal team, as a lot of larger companies do. And the way we were working with them just was not working. So I re-engineered the whole way, that process of how we work with them, and was able to sit down and solve that. And it's I look at it, I attack it like an engineering problem, and sure, I'm not writing code to make that happen, but it's still, you're still solving problems at just a very different level. And I have my engineers come to me and they talk about problems. We look at the whole architecture of what we're building, and we're architecting that. So I'm still, I think as you go on in that career, you can still bring some of that joy of like solving problems and engineering. But I do also think that I see some of my peers and my mentors that they'll go onto this very management heavy type of a role, type of a trajectory, and then maybe after 10 years they decide, what, I'm gonna switch roles, and now they're in a role where they're coding again. So it's not necessarily that the two merge. I think they kind of diverge, but I think they also kind of run parallel, and you could jump between those paths. So as long as you keep your skills pretty relevant. So
Which I believe
yeah.
you do, which I believe you do very smart, because you go home and say, you know what, let me still code. So because I seen that you still
Yeah, and
code.
I think, you and I in the circles we run in, we're always like, teaching each other new things and going to, having meetups and, demonstrating, hey, here's this new technology, you guys should try this out. So I think we're all like, at this point, and not even just people that at our level, but even, much more junior people go and give these presentations and we go and check like, oh wow, I haven't used that technology before. So, whether it's, on YouTube or articles you're reading or meetups you're going to, yeah, just keeping up and staying relevant, I think is key. Yeah.
I use the videos as an excuse so I can code. um, Actually, going back to the junior part, because I have so many questions based on conversations that we have with different audience. But so, for example, in the junior side, I would like to take this and maybe more into like your experience, like how was your experience as when you started, and what was the challenges or what you think are the challenges that are mainly junior developers facing. And I want to see in two ways, right? Because you also have your experience as whenever you started coding, but you've seen so many people. You
Yeah.
see so many people, you help so many people in that stage that you probably have, in my opinion, one of the most way formulated ideas of what are their challenges, because you dealt with them like in daily basis.
Yeah, so first of all, starting off as a junior myself, was not a similar path to most of the juniors today. So, I just want to comment on that when I started coding in 1982 when I was, knee high, and there was no internet, there was no Google, there was no, forget Stack Overflow or ChatGPT or Copilot. I was reading manuals, and then, you'd go through the whole manual and learn all the commands and try different things. But then, like, to get any kind of coding challenges, you had to get magazines, and they only came out at once a month. So you'd like solve a coding challenge or get stuck and, oh, where's the answer? Oh, I got to wait a month until the next magazine came out. That was definitely challenging. There weren't the networks of people like there are today. Even if the internet shut down, there's networks of people that we're connected to where you can go and say, hey, how would you solve this? It was a lot tougher back then. It was really like leaving the house, going to the library, writing stuff down with paper and pen or photocopying, and then going home to where your computer was to try it. So it was a lot slower process. And I learned, the stuff that you can learn in a boot camp now in 10 weeks, I learned over 10, it took me more than 10 years to learn. So my path was a very slow, gradual one, very different than the students that I've worked with, like boot camp students. And so now their journey is been a lot different. It's for them, it's like how to get up to speed really fast. What are the skills that are most relevant? One of the challenges that I always have in mentoring juniors. So one of our common friends, Jonathan, he and I often mentored a lot of the same students, and he would always push towards, well, let's teach them what's most commonly used in industry today. And I was like, forget what's used, let's teach them what's best, right? You're building software. Some of the tools that are used today are not, in my opinion, the best tools. Let's teach them the best. And he's like, no, but that's not how they're going to get a job. They need to know the most common. And, we would, a lot of times when software engineers fight, it's like, you're arguing, you're debating, and, it's not, we fight and we could get heated, but then we're, going out and having a beer afterwards. But we tried to walk that line and teach our students, like, here's the best way to do this, but also you need to learn this technology because that's what's used in industry. And then in terms of their biggest challenges, I really think it's just getting that first job, right? And I don't think this is unique to software engineering. I think this is, in most careers, it's getting somebody to take that chance on you, to roll the dice and say, hey, I like this person. I think they have what it takes. I think they're willing to learn. Look, you're never going to hire anybody that knows how to do everything you want them to do, because every company is unique. So everyone needs to learn on the job. But taking a risk on somebody who's untested is scary. And one of the experiences I just had here at this company, we're launching a new product. This product has been in the works for 2.5 years, and it's there was some I inherited a lot from previous management. I came in right towards the end of pre-launch. I came in, just a few months before launch, which today is the official code complete day. Been 2.5 years in the making. I've been here for just under a half a year of that. But when I got here, I was given a list of deadlines, and so far along this 2.5 year roadmap, not one deadline had been made. And so I said, okay, here's my first deadline. Are we on track? No, we're not. So I had to rework our whole development process to get us on track. We hit that deadline, so excited, didn't realize the next deadline was 2 weeks later, was not ready for it, totally blew past that deadline. 2 weeks later, hit the next deadline. But one of the things we did, we had our development team here was all seniors, and we needed to add people quickly. So I brought on a bunch of junior engineers. And what was the most fascinating thing to me is that our average velocity per person. So we measure our our level of effort in coding in what we call story points. And a lot of companies do this. It's there's other variations of it, but I don't look at a single developer and say, okay, how many points did you get this week? But I do look over the course of a 2-week period, how many points did my team complete? And when we brought on all these junior engineers, I thought the average per person would go down, right? Because they're learning the system, they're not as efficient as a senior engineer, et cetera, et cetera. And what ended up happening is our average speed doubled. Average per person speed doubled. And you look, and having the junior engineers there helped really motivate the seniors to be their best. It gave the seniors an opportunity to offload some of their busy work and work on more difficult things and crank through them. It gave them opportunity to pair up with somebody and work on things together. And really by creating a more collaborative environment, our team flourished, and we doubled our speed essentially, and per person, like we quadrupled the speed because we doubled the size of the team. But it was really was remarkable. So that is to say, the whole reason I said that is take a chance on juniors. That is the biggest challenge though for juniors, I think, is just getting that first job, because everyone wants to see what experience do you have. And they want to see more than just, well, I copied this project from YouTube, and it's hard. Somebody's got to take a chance on you, and I think that's where I see people get discouraged, is they apply for jobs and they don't get one right away, and then they just end up going back to their old career, or they wait tables or something, and a lot of times they give up, and it's sad to see. I've seen a lot of incredibly talented engineers give up before they even get their first job. So by and large, I say that's the biggest challenge.
I completely agree with you, and actually, I'm proud that at Cuemby we do take a lot of senior developers, give them a chance, and I agree exactly, because what you said is they give that fresh that fresh blood that sometimes needed, and it creates that ecosystem where you said the senior is kind of in a nice way forced to basically teach someone, which allow them to then realize, oh, why am I doing so many things? Like, I can handle this off. But some another thought that I would like to add in here, because like I said, you're a great mentor. So I know that the people that go through your program, and people that know you and have you as a mentor, they're great, right? And I would like to add that it's also about who is mentoring you um,
Yeah.
as a junior. And I'm gonna put myself on that shoes when I started the career here in the United States, because I used to code in Cuba, but once you migrate here to the United States, you realize that there's an entire world. I felt like you, like I was basically on the literally on the on the main cave ages. Then when I came, he's like what is a credit card, right? And I had to admit that my progression as a junior in the US was a lot faster and better because I had a great mentor, and he was here not long ago in the podcast, and he took the time to basically help me understand most of those concepts that I was lacking. And because the coding sometimes is not the issue, right? It's sometimes those like, what should I do? How I tackle the problem? So I want to highlight that because that's one of the things that really impact.
Yeah, one of the most talented engineers I've worked with in the past 10 years. Um, this guy Zach, he was brilliant, and when I met him, he actually taught at Book of Code for a while, the school that I ran, and one of the most talented engineers I know, and he'd only been coding for 5 years. And I know people that have been coding for 15 years that some of my juniors could code circles around. Um, but he was so talented. And I said, very intelligent guy too, but he credits how his like meteoric rise, I would say, in his career to his mentor. But also, it's a two-way street, because his mentor was mentoring 5 people at once, and one of them rose very quickly to the top. Why? Right? Because the mentor's like, hey, I think you guys should read these books, and he went and read those books and was like, okay, what next? And was just hungry and gobbling up all that information. And you see the same thing. I can mentor 5 people, and 4 of them could do phenomenal, and one of them just doesn't quite follow all the as much as you tell them to practice, as much as you tell them what to do, they find an excuse, and they're only cheating themselves. So
Yep.
you can't make people want it. You can't make people hungry, right?
No, I agree. And then you make reference to the perfect segue to my next question, which is, well, there are people that 15 years developing, and I think that let's call that the famous mid-level developers, right?
Yep.
So my question is, so I noticed that I seen that before, back in the day, let's call it that way, going from one stage to another one took time, right?
Yes.
Took experience. Now it seems to be everything pretty quickly. Like you can have someone and talking to someone, and I say, hey, how long you been coding? Oh, a year. Whoa, how you feel? You see yourself? Oh, I'm a senior. Oh, I'm a mid-level. And then those like self-assessments, sometimes they're accurate because I think it's mainly based on what you say, like how hungry the person is. Sometimes it's kind of like a arbitrage. So how would you see that mid ground, the mid developers? What would be kind of your advice for them, like to get out of that box? Because I understand what you're saying, that they're the best, probably like get it done things, but sometimes it gets like hard to get out of that stage, and that's why you see those 15 plus year developers doing the same thing all the time.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that we're gonna just keep saying the same thing over. I feel like a lot is mentorship, right? And so one of the things when I mentor juniors and I see them just skyrocketing, I start to get nervous, because I'm like, oh wait, they're close to that like mid-level stage where things can slip, and I'll tell them like, listen, you're there, just keep watch for this. Like, when you find yourself getting stuck in those patterns of thought of this is how to do it, and I know what I'm doing, and I'm done learning, and one of our mutual friends, Damien, he always says, like, you never stop learning. And I think now there's also a whole other side of this, okay, is and this is where I get a little bit, I don't know, maybe I'm going to wax a little poetic here, but Damien, like, he's like, you never stop learning, you can't stop learning. And Damien's just risen in his career, but that's not for everyone, right? Like, you not everyone needs to be an A player, right? You need solid Bs, right? You need some of those mid-level developers, and there was, you and I met at my photo, and one of our engineers at my photo, she's fantastic engineer, and she was very happy, I think, at the level she was at. And while on the weekends I was going and learning and trying new things and building other apps, and at night I would code, she was going on vacation with her friends and traveling the world, and she was in a different city every weekend. So who's got the better life? Like, you can stay solid mid-level, make your nice salary for the rest of your life, and spend your weekends and evenings doing awesome, fun things. Like, I look at her and think, man, am I doing this wrong?
Yeah, I ask myself the same question sometimes. No, I see your point. So the way that I'll basically unfold that, maybe for people that are watching, is like is I think is what you're saying is all depends on what is your level of comfort per se. Like, if you're comfortable at that level, that's what you want to do. Be happy.
But what are your goals, right? If your goal is, I want to rise up to the very I want to be the most senior engineer at the biggest company, you got to just keep going up and climbing that ladder. But at some point, some of us might get to a point where, like, you know what, I'm just really comfortable on this rung of the ladder, I'm going to hang here for a while. And that doesn't mean that you're stuck there forever, right? It just means, hey, let's hang out here for a while. So I think it's fair if somebody stays in a, like, gets to that mid-level position and just stays there making good money. But one of the things, I had a friend, I think it was Dari, who used to say this, in every job, you want one of two things. You either want to be learning or earning, right? So you're either growing in your career or you're just raking in money, right? Living off the fat of the land, so to speak, right? I got to this point, now let me rake in some dough. That's totally fair, right? Or you might be in a job where you're like, hey, I'm not really making as much money as I think I'm worth, but I'm learning and I'm growing and I'm climbing that ladder. Startups, for example, are great for that. They don't have the money to pay you crazy salaries, but you can learn and grow so fast. One of my recent graduates, he became the CTO of a startup, and he was making good money, not crazy CTO money, but he was making good money, but he learned so much leadership. Then came here, worked for me as a junior engineer, which is, it's hard. You got CTO on your resume and then you get hired as a junior engineer. And he was knocking out tickets so fast, crushing things, that one of my colleagues saw how good he was doing and was like, hey, I'm hiring him for a senior level role. So, sometimes that trajectory is not straight up the ladder, right? And everybody's career is going to be different. Don't always compare yourself to other people, right? Because that's, everyone's path will be different, right? And just find a path that works for you. And like you said, my path was not the standard path either. So.
Well, actually, I was going to ask about that, because you talked about a little bit about how you started, the challenges that you have. We were talking about the mid level, but you've been basically everywhere, man. Like, you've been in different industries, different positions. You led different strategy initiatives. Like, how you can keep up with all that, and two, like, uh, how that journey was for you. I'm intrigued because, like I said, you've been everywhere, including running a school.
Yeah, so my journey was definitely not far from a straight line, and so I'll share a little bit of that if we have time. I was coding at a very young age, became very good enough to the fact that to the point where I was like varsity computer team in high school. Talk about a nerd, right? I got my varsity letter in programming. And of course, all indications were like, this guy should become a software engineer. But I was an angsty teen, so you tell me to go this way, I go this way. And changed my major a million times. Never once was my major computer science. In college, I had honors physics, religious studies, horticulture, chemistry, you name it. Ended up in geography studying glaciers and climate, and became a college professor, got my PhD, and was one of the world's leading glacier climate scientists, literally. Was at the top of my academic career, running programs, flying all over the world to give talks and do research, and was published and funded by NASA and NOAA. And then one day, one of my friends called me on my birthday, actually, and he's like, he pointed out to me, he's like, you can make so much more money as a software engineer. So I retired that year, moved to Florida where my family was, and this a startup it's kind of hard to call them a startup. They'd already invested $2.5 million into this software. They'd been building it for two and a half years, 12 engineers on the team, and they were trying to solve this problem that related to mapping, right? And my PhD is in geography. So the guy, interviewed me, took a chance on me. And, the first 2 weeks I was there, I was like, you got to rebuild this whole thing. It's garbage. Rebuilt his entire platform that he took, spent $2.5 million in 2 weeks, rebuilt his whole platform. It made it way faster, less expensive, better architecture, and dropped his cloud bill by 90%. And then the next week solved his mapping issue that he was having, and that was a really cool challenge because, first thing you do, you look online, who's had this problem? Everyone's got the problem. How did they solve it? No one solved it. So, okay, I got to engineer a solution to it, right? I can't just do what somebody else did. And then that's when he fired the other 12 engineers, sadly, but, it's cool when you could replace 12 people. So that's kind of how I got my career started, and that was in the real estate space, right? So I was doing a lot of real estate tech, which is super hot in Florida. Basically built like a Zillow type of an app, and then we ended up starting our own real estate agency. I was so successful in this company, he gave me a third of the company, and then we partnered with another company, and we, like, 4 of us became equal partners. So my boss, who hired me, ended up becoming my partner. We both ended up getting diluted out, totally got screwed by these like cutthroat business people. And then I was like, screw it, I'm starting my own software agency. Ran an agency for several years with 2 partners that are still running it today, actually. But we ran that for years, dozens and dozens of startups that we launched, and we also worked on dozens of projects for Fortune 500 companies. Really cool, building games, building mobile apps, building web applications, AR, VR, AI, everything in between. So that's where I really got to like jump around from industry to industry and get my feet wet across a ton of different spaces. So if you ever get a chance, if you're an engineer and you're really wanting to expand your horizons, working for an agency where you can work on different projects every week, really, that's an incredible experience. So we actually became well known in like among the boot camps as like the place to get a job, right? Getting mentorship, getting to work in different platforms. That was really exciting. And then we brought in a 4th partner that completely changed the the entire culture of the company. So I got the heck out of there, went and worked in the photo space, which my PhD was actually doing a lot with like digital imagery from satellites. And then and also I was an amateur photographer, so they were like, oh, this is amazing, right? So I ran, that's where you and I met. And yeah, got to really do a lot of cool stuff there. Work, not just in e-commerce, but also in like warehouse management and building a lot of automation tools, AI stuff. Really, really fun space, and getting to meet cool people like you and working with you. I learned so much on the DevOps side, and you gave me that Kubernetes bug, and and it's also validating though when you come into a company and you're like, hey, I know you guys use this technology, but this is really where we should be. And they're like, no, and then they're like, let's bring in Angel, we trust Angel. And then you come in and you're like, I know you guys are using this, but this is really better. And they're like, really? Oh yeah, okay, we heard that. And it's like, yeah, I told you. But it's always fun meeting like-minded people, and yeah, and then after that is when I started the school. And back when we had the agency, we were hiring a lot of boot camp students, and it was really hard. It's really hard to find just like pipelines of talent sometimes. And there were plenty of boot camps in Miami, but we'd go down there and the students were eager for jobs, but they didn't want to come up to this far north. And so my partner at the time was like, Todd, you love to teach, you love coding, start a boot camp. We'll put it right next to the agency, and the best students, we'll just bring them over. And it ended up being a few years later that happened. That I started the school. Definitely the most rewarding thing I've done in my whole career. It was incredible. Just did an amazing job on every aspect except for the financial side. So that's why Boca Code's no longer with us. But yeah, got to really work with some incredible people, and now then did a lot of consulting, and now here I am at Site Impact, and getting to build software and work with engineers at multiple levels, and DevOps people, and meet a whole bunch of new friends. So it's really cool.
I think your journey just explained what I was saying at the beginning. The people that actually been there and done that, because you basically been almost everywhere, doing basically a lot of stuff. Which actually that's the reason why definitely I respect so much your career, because that's what in my opinion, I believe that's what give you that opening outside of the box. You've seen so many different challenges, and when you look at something, it's hard for you to just say this is the only way. It's kind of like, let's see how we can make that impact quickly. Like you were saying, like, yeah, can we turn this around in 2 weeks? Can we get this around? So that is what I admire so much, and it's pretty interesting. And just a quick anecdote that you share about the how you got screwed up with the business and all that. When I started, it was in a digital agency, and one of my first projects was like, oh, Angel, I need to build a tracking system. Go ahead and do a quick pilot, right? And excited junior developer, I built everything, not the pilot, like everything.
Right.
and then I realized that it was sold by $26 million a year later. So, come on. Anyways, fun.
So that's exciting, Yeah.
fun stuff that you have as a junior, but it does teach you a lot. I agree with you. If you want to learn, agencies or startup. If you are in that, getting and you want to like test yourself, like really tough startups. If you want to learn, agencies.
You think, you look back at my career, and where's the one gap that I really have in certain respects is, I've never worked. I've been offered jobs at, but turned down, working at like the big 10, big 5 companies, right? But at the agency, I got to work with a ton of startups and a ton of the big Fortune 500 companies. We built a game with Marvel, right? For Ally Bank. It's like, we worked with Sprint, we worked with big airlines. Like, I've worked with a lot of those big companies, even though I've never worked at one. I've worked with them and collaborating, at least as a as a contractor for them. And it's very different what they expect of you versus a startup. And like you said, sometimes it's like, hey, we need this real quick, or we don't care how long it takes. It has to meet all of these rules. Every company's different. So definitely, like, the whirlwind of startup life or agency life, wow, nothing compares.
No, I agree. So actually, we're getting to the next section, which is the one before last. Which
Okay.
I told you I'm gonna test on you. This is new. Okay. This is brand new. You're the first.
I'm ready. Let's go.
I'm gonna ask you 5 rapid questions.
Okay.
The answers short enough, but here I go. And the real here is like, these questions are tailored to your background. So
okay,
I'm pretty sure that you can get this one nailed. So first question: what has been the most rewarding project that you worked in your career?
So I think for my career was running the agency, but I think most rewarding was also Boca Code, because I helped start so many other careers. So 2 answers, is that okay? Fair enough.
That's okay. It's your answer, whatever you want.
Okay.
Next one: how do you balance coding every day with your leadership responsibilities?
Yeah, so I kind of, I think I already answered this in a certain way, is that, as your leadership responsibilities take off, just making time for coding. And I literally block out time on my calendar, because otherwise my calendar will fill up with meetings. So I block out time on my calendar to make sure I get time to do my work, to get coding done. And then, also sometimes you just gotta code at home and do your, let go of, that needing to have that at work.
Nice. I'm taking that one for sure. I'm looking at my calendar. Next one: what's the most important piece of advice you give to a startup founders?
Most important is work closely with other startup leaders and company leaders. I think learning from each other. One of my closest friends, he got all of this money to start his business, and everyone's like, dude, why don't you start your own business? And he's like, no, I'm gonna go work for somebody else first, see how they run their business, and learn. And I think that if you have the opportunity to do that, work in a similar industry. But if not, if you're just like, look, I need to start this business, having friends like we have each other, that are in a similar situation that you can bounce ideas off of, and don't be afraid to ask questions. And you can't know everything. You can't be an expert at everything. So don't be hard on yourself. That's the other. Forgive yourself for your shortcomings, recognize your shortcomings, and find people that can help fill in those gaps. Sorry, that was a more than one answer, I think, but
Perfect.
Let it go.
I'm taking notes. In your opinion, what's the biggest challenge in mentoring engineers today?
So yeah, the biggest is just, they have to want it, right? If you can't, as we spoke about a little bit earlier, no matter how hard you try, you can't teach somebody if they don't really want it, if they're not really hungry. So I think that's, if somebody really wants it, it's easy. The mentoring's easy, I think. But you can't teach somebody who doesn't want it.
I agree. I definitely agree. And the last question of the rapid fire section: what's a key trait that makes someone an effective servant leader in tech like you?
So yeah, I mean, I think as a servant leader, you really need to you need to let go of your ego, right? You can't see yourself as, oh, I'm above these people, right? You have to see it as like, okay, these are the workers and I need to support them. right? And you just have to view it in that way. I need to lift them up. I need to make sure that they have everything they need to be successful. What can I provide for them to make them successful? And I think that's, the biggest difference between like the boss versus the leader. The boss is like looking down on them, like, what are they doing wrong? As opposed to a servant leader looks more inward, like, what am I doing wrong? How could I better support my team? If your team is failing, it should be on you, right? So let go of that ego and start looking up at your team instead of down at them.
Awesome. You nailed it, my friend. You nailed it.
Rapid fire. Let's go.
You know what? So the interesting part about this, and I think I love this episode has been so enlightening, right? And it cannot end without something that I always do. And we've been talking about tech, leadership, so many things, career opportunities, how to advise it. But something that we love in these episodes is to make the technology, everything based on the human, right?
Yes.
We've been talking about AI lately a lot, and I think AI is amazing, but something that we appreciate more than anything in the world is the humans. We are the ones that actually needs to be left, the way that you're saying. And
Yes.
And something that I always ask before we close the episode is, if you have an anecdote or something that happened in your life that you can share with us, that makes so much impact in you that became the Todd today, what would that be?
Oof, that's a tricky one. I want to say that it's hard to pin it to one specific thing. If you want to say one specific thing, and this ties very well into the whole theme of this episode, it's mentorship, right? And why it's hard to pin down is because when I went through my academic career, as an undergrad, I had an incredible mentor. My major professor, he was so impactful on me. And then when I worked on my master's, I had two, well, all of my professors that I worked closely with, I got so much from them. Like just as an example, I had a professor who I went into his office and I asked him for help with something. And he's like, well, let's go down the hall and spread out in the conference room. And I had all these maps out and images that I had printed, and we're sitting there talking for hours. And his wife, who was my professor, who also I learned so much from, she comes in the room and she's like, what the hell are you doing? And he's like, I'm helping Todd. And she's like, you were supposed to, turn in your draft to Science Magazine 30 minutes ago. And he's like, it's okay, I'm working with Todd. And I'm like, what? Like, that's more important. And he's like, no, this is more important. And like, here he was about to get published in like the premier science journal that there is. And he's just like, no, this is, helping a young scientist is more important than publishing in some journal. That right there, like that is an example of the type of mentorship that I had, the type of leadership I got to see. And I think that like those kinds of things really impact who I am today, and how, especially as a leader and as a mentor.
And I'm definitely a witness of that. I know for a fact that you are the person that you always look for someone else and put even everyone else before you. And that's the most, I don't have words to explain it. That's the most impactful thing about you. And that's what I want to highlight, because you are a great leader. You're a great
Appreciate
human,
it.
and that's what we need to highlight. And
right back at you, man. You're incredible yourself, bud. Lots of respect.
And with that, I knew it. This was gonna be an amazing episode. I was really looking forward. As soon as I saw it scheduled, I was like, yes. I'm glad to share.
Well, thanks for inviting me. You gave me that Lego figure actually right there. Right there, right there, that Lego figure.
Awesome. That's the legal Cuemby fighter DevOps. Awesome. No, it was awesome to speak with you today and share your story. Like I say, I'm so impressed that I always say that it had to be shared. So thank you so much, Todd. I really hope to see you back again here because we can have so many things to talk about. And
Absolutely,
definitely
anytime.
forward.
Anytime, and I'm sure I'll see you around the community too.
Likewise, my friend. You have a good one.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thanks for tuning in today. We hope you found this podcast episode informative, engaging, and entertaining. We can't wait for you to join us again for our next episode. Until then, keep exploring, learning, and making extraordinary things happen.